Hello, Rob Lambert here with AssetProtectionTraining.com. Today I'm going to explain differences between a traditional and a kinetic asset protection plan, and I'm going to deal with my preferences on each. They both have their places, and the bottom line is I don't think any of you should ever do a kinetic asset protection structure unless you're really well advised. Make sure you have a real pro with you. I actually invented this structure years ago. I love it. But I know how to work it, and my clients are well trained. Half the job of doing asset protection is training your clients how to drive the 800 horsepower Ferrari you build for them. And if you start with a kinetic asset protection trust, you're very likely to crash your vehicle if you haven't had a lot of training. Yes, it's a better car. Yes, it goes faster. Yes, it handles better, but it's very high performance. So most of you should stick with a traditional asset protection structure. That's my bottom line conclusion. Let me tell you why I get there. This is a traditional asset protection structure. We've already been over this. You've already seen this diagram. You've watched the videos. And if you haven't, you need to. Bottom line, just a quick overview. This black line from the upper left to the lower right hand side of the page symbolizes foreign versus domestic. On the right hand side, it is foreign and therefore safer. On the left hand side, it's domestic and therefore less safe. On the domestic side, there's no trust. I keep the trust foreign to the extent possible. Makes it much harder to serve it. Underneath or on the domestic side is the blue family limited partnership. It has a human being general partner. I don't think it's necessary to use a corporate entity. It's sometimes wise. Many times I do. I just don't necessarily think the money is well spent because the general partner is always going to be personally named in any suit anyway. So that's a question depending upon the client. But most of the time I let it be a human being. The family limited partnership is a domestic partnership. I usually use Delaware. And 99% of the assets in the partnership are owned by the trust. Why is that important? Because remember, the first rule of asset protection, what you don't own cannot be taken from you. So assets that are in that family limited partnership are theoretically fully protected without you doing any more. You just can't trust domestic judges to do the right thing and follow the law. They oftentimes do what their hearts demand. And so they will sometimes disregard charging order protection, in fact, many times, and they will move and manipulate the law to favor creditors that theoretically, applying strict to the law without the heart of the judge, would be disenfranchised. On the right-hand side is the Brown Asset Protection Trust, traditional structure. It has a settlor, a protector, and beneficiaries. The last key player is a foreign trust company. This is usually a licensed trust company. They're usually owned by major important law firms, but they're usually not rich. There's a lot of them owned by banks, and there's a lot of them that are really rich. They don't like asset protection trusts very much, and they almost always insist upon managing my client's money. I think that's usually a bad idea. I don't know very many clients that allow bank trust companies the power to manage their money and then come to me and tell me how pleased and happy they are with their returns and the thoughtfulness. Most of those people managing those assets on behalf of banks just allocate the assets, follow simple computer models, and do pretty poor work. So I use usually the foreign trust company that I use are usually owned by small to medium-sized, highly prestigious law firms. And they are willing to allow my clients to usually control the investment of their hard-earned money. And I think you should insist on that with any trust company that you go to. Well, this is a traditional structure. The only problem with the traditional structure is that the settlor is forced to trust this unrelated yellow foreign trust company up there. And oftentimes the settlor will have much more money, and the trust will have much greater assets than the whole foreign trust company has. I don't think you are wise to trust anybody if you don't have to. So, traditional structures are not what I favor, but it's what I think you should all do. And the way I think you should avoid being subject to theft risk from the foreign trust company is to always make sure that you sign on all the bank accounts, even if it's with the foreign trust company. And that's always the best way, in my mind, when you're doing a simple trust and you're not getting too complicated. It's always better to have two signatures, the foreign trust company and the settlor on the bank accounts. That way, if the settlor is ordered to write a check to some creditor, the settlor can comply with the judge's order. Settlor isn't going to go to jail if the settlor complies with the judge's order. But the foreign trust company is not going to also sign the check or wiring instructions or fax or make the call or whatever has to be done to move money or assets. So you can pretty well have your cake and eat it too with a traditional structure. I'm much more comfortable with the structure of the Kinetic Asset Protection Trust because I believe it gives the client more flexibility. But again, don't do this on your own. It's too dangerous. It's like getting an 800 horsepower Ferrari. You're going to crash it if you don't have the training. Well, here is a Kinetic structure. It's identical to a traditional structure, except it has one more player right here, the U.S. co-trustee. This is usually my client, who happens to also be the settlor. And what you need to do is you need to have a carefully thought out battle plan. I usually prepare something called a red alert memo, basically a cookbook on what to do if the world falls apart. If you adopt a Kinetic structure, go with somebody who knows what they're doing and get a roadmap of the steps to follow if your life falls apart. And the bottom line steps that need to be followed is you need to have people other than yourself, such as a foreign protector, actually removing the U.S. co-trustee and converting the Kinetic structure back to a traditional structure without the U.S. co-trustee. You would only do that when the financial seas were cloudy and rough, when there was warfare going on, when you were going into debtors exams, when there was open attack. During the times where the financial seas are calm, the Kinetic structure is always easier, always more comfortable, and always makes the clients happier because of the control they're able to exercise. But believe me, you do not want a Kinetic structure unless you have a plan and you're vigilant to implement that plan if attack comes. Okay, I hope this has helped you with the basic differences, and I hope that you take this home with you. Don't be afraid of either, but for heaven's sakes, if you're doing any of this yourself or doing this without really high level guidance, then stick with the traditional structures. Okay, thank you very much.